viewers, and welcome back to the South Main Auto Channel. So we've got this 2008 Ford Mustang on the lift right now, and it needs a clutch or some component there in the bell housing. I'm suspicious of the pilot bearing personally, based on the symptoms. So this is a 4-liter, so it's 6-cylinder Mustang, manual gearbox, obviously. The symptoms is it won't go into gear once you start the car unless you force it, you kind of grind it past where it needs to go, or just shut the car off, put it in gear, and then start it, and then you can drive the car like normal. There is a little bit of noise. If you have the car just fired up, leave it in neutral, there's no noise. You push down on the clutch, there's no noise. So I'm not suspicious of, what do I say, like a throwout bearing. That's nice and quiet. As soon as you put it in gear though, and stop the rotation of that input shaft in the transmission, then you've got some noise. Not a tremendous amount, but it does sound like it's in the pilot bearing. And of course, if the pilot bearing has gone bad and it's starting to kind of lock on that input shaft, it's going to keep that input shaft rotating independent of, releasing the clutch disc. So that's what I think we're going to find when we get in here. I could be way off. I've seen rivets break on the clutches before, and the clutch still, even though you disengage it, clutch pedal feels fine. It's quite stiff. But even though you disengage it, there's still that little bit of frictional drag. So I don't know what we're going to find, but we'll soon find out, I guess, because we're going to yank the transmission out of it. It's after hours. I've only got just a few hours to be here. I got some other obligations tonight. I was going to start this in the morning. I got a pile of work out there in the parking lot to do tomorrow, which is Friday, which, I've got all promised by the end of the day. So I'm going to stay a little bit late, yank this out. But we don't have a video of yanking out a manual training. Got a lot of automatics and stuff that we've done. So anyhow, enough talking. Let's get started. So just at a glance, obviously we've got the transmission here. We've got some wiring harness on the side. Looks like some O2 sensor wires. The upstream O2 sensor wires look like they go up the bell housing. What we got here looks like maybe a reverse light switch, neutral switch. We've got a speed sensor there. The nice part about these transmissions is the shift linkage. Of course, you guys can't see it because it's too dark, but it's right up above the drive shaft here, and it's all external, so we don't have to tear apart anything inside the vehicle to get the shifter out, which is nice. Looking at those two O2 sensors, you can see how they're pretty close to the tranny there. I think we're just going to pop those out of the converter so we don't damage them with the bell housing when we pull it back. I think that would be the smartest thing to do, so we'll get those out of the way. But first and foremost, we have to remove the drive shaft or prop shaft, whatever you want to call it. They take a 12mm 12-point, pretty common on Fords. So I'm going to take and buzz this drive shaft out, and it's also bolted on the flange up here. And the slip yoke on this drive shaft is kind of unique because it's in the middle of the shaft, so that's pretty cool. At that point, I think what we'll do is start undoing the wiring. This cross member obviously has to go, so we'll unbolt the training mount from that. This should go relatively quickly. Doesn't look too bad. We've got a hydraulic clutch, so it's an internal slave cylinder, and that's right up there. So we're going to have to undo the hydraulic line from that. I don't see a bleeder on it, which is kind of odd. I don't know how you bleed out these clutches, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So a lot of times on these Ford drive shafts, you have to, these bolts have Loctite on them, so sometimes you got to put a little heat on them. And we'll use the 1828 Nano, and I've got a 12mm 12-point swivel socket, and that's all I use it for is Ford drive shafts. Oh, wrong way, fella. Yeah, that one zipped right out. All zippy zip. So they come out pretty good there. Alright, we'll do the front ones. I've unhooked the battery too, because I think we got to pull the starter on this thing. is. So we'll work on this shift linkage. I think we've got to pull the whole, this whole bar out. I don't know if that's gonna have enough room. Come over or not, we'll see if that's the case. I don't know if that will or not. Sign up on a training, we're gonna have to use a wrench on. Oh man, open that side too. Oh, nobody likes using open-end wrenches. Left-handed nonetheless. Wow, what a rookie. Gotta switch hands. I had to pry that, had to pull this bushing back just enough to get that nut off the rest of the way. Let's see, it looks like I don't want to lose that bushing. There's the rubber outer half. There's a little nylon bushing in there. Alright, so the whole shaft comes out. So there's that little torque bar there, whatever, I'm not even sure the technical name of it. Gotta get that off because that bolts to the transmission. Back ourselves in a hole here. Finish that out by hand. I'll show you the stuff once I get it off. Oh jeez, the bolt must go all the way to the other side of the car, holy crap. That's a big bolt. Alright, so here's your shift linkage. Those are the two nylon bushings that went in there. There's a couple O-rings that are underneath them on the shift rod here. So those nylon bushings go on there. Then I had that little rubber washer, or seal I guess it would be. And that sits on there like that. And then on the other end, it was just a plain metal shaft, and the bushings are still in the shift linkage up there. So that's all there is to that. And then we took this one bolt here out of that rod that runs down from the shifter down to the transmission. What I'm going to do now, we'll see if these, the engine's nice and cold, see if these crack loose. That one did. That one did. So we'll get these O2 sensors unplugged. And then we'll take them and just get them right out of the way. That way we don't accidentally, damage them. Pulling the transmission out. I don't know if we absolutely have to. We could probably pull the transmission back and kind of ease it past him, but might better just be safe, better safe than sorry, I guess. We'll, there we go. This car is pretty clean. It's an '08. Of course, you guys already know that, but I don't believe it's a New York car. I think the lady just moved here. So, all right, we'll set these so we don't mix them up, even though they're the same. But, all right, so what I want to do now is we've got to get the some of this wiring off. The wiring goes around the top of the transmission. It feels like there is some connectors, or not some connectors up there, but some of these little Christmas tree fasteners that we're going to have to get out of the transmission because the harness is going to stay, when we pull this training out. It'd been nice if they put a plug, a bulkhead plug right on it. That'd been really nice. Leave all the wiring right on it here and not have to worry about that. These Ford speed sensors with their double tabs can be kind of a pain in the neck. Pry bar is probably a little bit excessive, but there she goes. There's that side. Got to get these like I say, these little zip ties with the Christmas tree, kind of one-time use deals, which if they break, it's not a huge deal because I carry those. Let me get a pick. We'll see if we can't get it out of there. Is it a two-finger style or what the heck these things are? They are. Okay, so they got two fingers on them. You just do press one at a time. We're holding some down tension on it. I'll show you once I get this one out, as long as it doesn't break. There it is. So I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but you just depress the tab on either side of these. They're kind of a bullet shaped, look like a little tree. Good style. You see them a lot on jet cars, Hondas, Toyotas. We also got to hook this slave cylinder Like I say, I don't know what, I don't see the bleeder on it, so we're gonna have to look up the bleed procedure. But there is a metal retaining clip on it. We'll see if we can't just wiggle that little guy out of there without sending it flying across the shop. So there it is. That's your little clip that goes on the hose for the slave cylinder. And once that's off, you should be able to give that a little wiggle. It might have a little brake fluid that comes out of it. Yep, there it is. It's going to drip all the fluid out of the master cylinder. Some of the older Fords that use the old, you know, them 2-finger release tools, when you unhook those, they had a check valve on them. They wouldn't leak, but that's not the case here, folks. So I took and put a little plug in, a little rubber plug in the end of that slave cylinder, so that way, or the line coming down from the master, so that won't keep dripping on us. We got to buzz this starter loose here. We'll probably just leave the wires hooked to it as long as we can set it somewhere. Oh, come on, little fella. That bottom one wasn't that tight. Get a different socket here. These are just 10mm ratchet, or socket rather. There we go. That bottom one was pretty loose compared to that one. Alright, so there's the starter. Like I said, we'll just set this back out of the way. Battery's unhooked, so we ain't got to worry about it too much, but I think we can kind of tip it up here. Yeah, there we go. Set it around the frame so it's not holding on the wires. Let's see. No, there ain't much to these transmissions, let me tell you. We can yank some of the bell housing bolts out of it, then we'll drop this cross member down. There's wires up on top here. Like I say, I can feel the clips that hold them in, but I can't get them released, so we'll let this tip down a little bit and see if we can get in there. I think in the meantime we can get up here. Looks like 13mm, buzz out some of these bolts. That ain't what we're gonna do with that extra. We'll get up close. Whoa, baby! There we go. Pay attention to your bell housing bolts in case they are different, you know, lengths and everything. These ones are all the same so far. So, or at least the 4 that came out the bottom side anyways. What size we got here? Not that size, fella. There's one. Chrome socket on impact. Why not? So this is the transmission mount. I'll take the bolts out of that, or nuts rather. Nuts, bolts. Hey, look at that, first try. And we're gonna have to get the transmission jack. I won't take any more out. Alright, so we got a little tension on it there. Finish taking this cross member out. Remember, the blue dot goes towards the back. I don't know if that's always true, but it is in this case. There we go. So she's hanging there pretty good. You guys ain't gonna be able to see, but I've got to see. I've got to see what I can't see. I want to see what's on top of this little fella. I can't see nothing. Move that out of the way. Oh, what is up there? Alright, so we've got a O2 sensor wiring up there, so that's going to be the passenger side bank, whatever bank that is. The upstream wire looks like it's mounted on a bracket that is bolted to the bell housing, so that's in the clear. Oh man, there's just one of those. It's one of those Christmas tree fasteners up there that I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to it. That's kind of disappointing. mean, I can feel it, but you know what? That feels like it's, that may not be, that may be going through, that goes through a web on the transmission. I was gonna say, it felt like it was hooked onto that metal bracket also. I'm gonna have to see if I can't pull it through. I obviously can't get to it to release it. It's kind of a bummer. Man, they're strong. There she goes. I don't think it survived. No, it definitely didn't survive. But we can put a new one on. Yep. Nothing I can do about it, people. I can only feel it. I can't do anything to release the tab on it, so we'll obviously replace that. But we'll throw the jack back under it now, get those, well, we got 2 bell housing bolts left. We should be able to slip this transmission right out of here. Move things out of our way. Wire harness, we'll stick up on top of the transmission here. That should be all loose. I don't think there's enough slack in that wire harness to have allowed us to pull the transmission back far enough to clear the input shaft to get it down to unhook the wiring. I may be wrong, but yeah, it looks like 1, 2, 3. Looks like we got 3 bell housing bolts left, perhaps. There's that. I don't know if we're gonna have enough mustard in our impact to get these. We've got to use a pretty long extension here. We'll give it a whirl. Might have to break them loose by hand. Extensions take a lot out of an impact, especially when they're 3 foot long. There's that one. Where's the other one? The other one is up here hiding. Way at the top. Whoa! That one's loose. We got one more. Thought I could see one more up there. Let's try to fish our extension up there. Oh yeah, she's hiding way at the top. Kind of an odd shaped bell housing here. Alright, come here, little guy. Always got that one bell housing bolt, you know. Think about it. There's that one. Alright, that should be it. Let me get a magnet here. We'll fish them bolts out so we don't drop them. We'll do a little bolt fishing. There's one. Where's the other one? There's 2. Those are the same. Now these ones are shorter than the ones we took out of the bottom. Where's that one? There's that one. Is there one more? There's also a short one. Make sure that O2 sensor bracket is not loose currently. So there must be, gotta be one more bell housing bolt that we can almost see. Give it the classic reach around. Ooh, there is one more. That's a move that never fails. This thing has got a lot of bell housing bolts. Go. Where is she? Where are you, little guy? Oh, there we go. Feel like I'm in. Ah, you son of a, wow, where are you? Swivel sockets will get you every time. You don't want to keep your hands up here. Oh, where am I doing? There she is. Last one. Okay. So meow, our transmission should be loose. This thing's not even seized up on the dowel pins or anything. I don't know what to do with myself. spoke too soon. There we go. Alright, transmission's loose. Make sure this wire harness is loose also. It is. Okay. So that should be all good. This bar back here by the train, back of the shifter. We just got to clear the input shaft. And then we can start coming down with it. So the input shaft's still in the fingers of the clutch. We gotta want to look on top of that transmission. I want to make sure we ain't pulling any wires. I think there's a peanut up here. It looks like a peanut. I don't even know. It looks like our wire harness is loose. Out she comes. There's a little Christmas tree fastener somebody broke. So there she is, folks. That's a pretty easy transmission to pull. Here's the that little fastener on that wiring harness I was trying to get out. Like I say, you just can't, you know, up in there you can't do anything. I thought I saw a peanut, but just some debris. There's our slave cylinder there. Let's have a looky. Uh-oh, better grab our light. Where is she? Oh, we got metal shaving. Let me set this down. We're going live. This whole thing's been pretty much live. Phone's not ringing, it's amazing. So we have a little metal debris here. So this is where the pilot bearing's gonna ride. Okay, it looked like that shaft was all spalled up. Let me, let's grab a napkin. Oh, it's hard to do this. Oh man, there's something on the screen. Look at that, fixed. Dang it all. Okay. Say if we got to change the input shaft here, but it doesn't look too bad. Oh, it feels good. Don't feel any grooves or anything on it. Whew, it had me a little nervous there. It wasn't looking too hot at first. So here's our slave cylinder. Of course, we got our throwout bearing here. You know, that still feels nice and smooth. I always change these. You know, you're gonna pull a train, you just put a new slave cylinder in. Of course, it's the only way to get the throwout bearing. We've got our input shaft there. Of course, our clutch is still hooked to the back of the engine, and that's what we're going to pull apart now to find out what happened. Like I say, I'm pretty suspicious of this pilot bearing just based on the symptoms. So we'll see. Got to have room to work, and so here's the bracket that held that O2 sensor. See, so that sat up there like this. Bell housing bolt went through it, and naturally that went there. So this was up on that corner bell housing bolt. And then this is the little Christmas tree zip tie that we've got to replace. So we're just going to shove that little harness out of the way. Right now, this is our clutch. Master cylinder hose goes to the slave cylinder. Like I said, I just got that little rubber plug in there to slow down the drizzle. What do we need? What do we need? We need an impact, first of all. We need some kind of tool. Now we can use a little air ratchet. That's already got 10 millimeter on it. So we'll take and pull our clutch cover off here. dowel pins a little bit. He's got Loctite on him. That's why she's screaming. We got 2, 4, 6. A little screwdriver here. Got a couple dowel pins. All right. Got one more up top. Come on, little fella. Just want that clutch just fall and hit the floor. Come on, little fella. There she goes. All right. There's our pressure plate. There's our clutch disc. And there's our completely demolished pilot bearing. So it was a good call anyways. So right in there is the pilot bearing, and that's what I suspected was bad. And we can see, obviously, it's gone and left town on us. Needles have gone. Probably one of them wedged in there, and that's what gave it the symptom of not releasing. And then, now some of them are missing. Let's see here. Grab the handy dandy pocket screwdriver. Yeah, we can see, there they are. That whole bearing is falling to pieces. That's it. I don't know if that's piloted in the, that's got to be in the flywheel. I was going to say, so a lot of these go in the end of the crankshaft, but I think this one's in the flywheel. So we're going to zip our bolts out of the flywheel here and get this flywheel off. Oh, don't breathe that dust. Or that dust. Don't breathe any of the dust. So that's going to come loose pretty easy. Now, this reminds me, horrible story. Back when I worked on big trucks, we were putting a clutch in a semi, I don't remember what it was. Flywheels are, about the size of this engine. And the guy I was working with, he stuck the flywheel up there, and we had a special jack for him that, would hold it in the pilot bearing, and you'd stick the flywheel up and get the bolts in it, but he didn't want to use the jack, so he picked the flywheel up like this. He started one bolt by hand, and then he moved his hand down on the bottom of the bell housing on that truck, and the bolt he put in didn't hold, and that whole flywheel come down and got all 4 of his digits. They exploded pretty quickly. Just want to get some of that metal shavings out of the end of that crankshaft there. All right, so that's good. There's no sense in putting a rear main seal in this thing at this point. I mean, this thing is bone dry, as you guys can see. So why mess with it? And naturally, or I don't know. This transmission comes out in about 15 minutes. So if you did have to change it, maybe it'd be a different story if this took all day or something. But I'm not too worried about it. So we bought a whole clutch kit. This is a Luke clutch kit. Well, you guys can see, well, this brand here, Luke, LUK, whatever. So the factory flywheel is a stepped flywheel. They've got a kit that's just a flat face flywheel. You can use their clutch with it. This flywheel we could certainly send down and get it turned. It's going to cost you about $60 to get this, get the flywheel resurfaced down at the machine shop. Fact of the matter is, this clutch kit is pretty inexpensive. The clutch kit with the flywheel is actually less money than buying the clutch kit and getting this flywheel turned. So we just opted to get the whole clutch kit. Now here's the new pilot bearing. You guys can see it's just a regular needle bearing. One side of it has a seal on it. It's kind of a little internal seal there. It's going to seal on the input shaft of the transmission. So we want that seal facing out. you know, on the top side here to keep the clutch debris and stuff from getting in there. So a pilot bearing can go bad. It can just actually just wear out. It can also be damaged on installation. So you have to be really careful, particularly with these really tiny ones, of lining up that input shaft on the transmission, you know, before you just go muscling that thing in there. You've got to let her slip together. So we're going to use a little brass punch here. There it is, baby. So that's in the new flywheel, all nice and shiny. And we're going to grab some torque specs on the crankshaft bolts and get this bolted back up. We'll get our clutch set on there. It did come, I think it comes, yeah, it came with a alignment tool. So this is the, you know, simulates the input shaft of the transmission. That'll pilot in the pilot bearing, and it'll line up our clutch disc. You know, once we're up inside the car, line up our clutch disc. It'll line us up with the pilot bearing. If I could slip it in. So there we go. Then we'll put the clutch cover on, and you know, you got a little bit of play there. So usually when I put them in and they're hanging, I just push up on them just a little bit, kind of just find that neutral spot, and then we'll bolt it down, torque those bolts, and then we've got the new slave cylinder here and throwout bearing. And the phone's ringing. Here we go. I don't know if I can do this with you guys in the way. So, you know, I just got reading the directions. I was looking up the torque specs, and it was pretty specific in there that that flywheel cannot be resurfaced. I'm kind of surprised. I don't think I've ever read that before. Usually on a stepped flywheel, when you resurface them, you have to resurface the inner surface, clutch surface, and whatever material you take off there, you just take off the step. You know, most track trailers and big diesel trucks, you know, with two-stage clutches, they all have stepped flywheels. You know, very rarely do you see a flat flywheel. And, you know, that's just common practice, but that's a good thing we've gone ahead and got the flywheel anyways, because we've been kind of boned. Of course, that flywheel looked like it's in good shape. Probably could have threw a clutch disc on it, you know, if you're in a pinch, but I'm only going halfway on stuff because I don't want it to come haunt me. So we'll get these in. These are a 3-step torque process. It was like 115 inch-pounds or something like that, and then some torque spec, and then 90 degrees. All right, let me grab the torque wrench. So first step was 115 inch-pounds in sequence. So I've got them labeled here for us, best I could. Well, that wasn't very much. Next is like 30-some foot-pounds. It says 37. That's probably going to turn the engine over. All right, now we've got to go 90 degrees, but I've got to be able to, my flywheel holding tool won't hold that style flywheel. I've got to find some way to hold it. I don't know if we can lock in between them. All right, we can give it a try here. So we got to go, oops, wrong button. Dang it. A button pusher. Okay, 90 degrees, here we go. Let's see if we can't, so that's a quarter turn. And I can't even get it to click on. There we go. Let's see if this will hold it enough. There's 30. Wow, these friggin' things are tight. Holy crap, biscuit. Damn, that is tight. There's number one. We did that one. Scratch that one off. Wow. Well, torque I can put on the heads of them bolts, but jeez, I don't know what that final torque spec is. That's about all I got, folks. Not gonna lie. That's number 2. I want to bar this engine over a little bit here. Yeah, I probably shouldn't be holding on them bolts. I gotta find something different. That's 6 degrees. I got a bar on the front of the engine now. I just did 3. So we'll go up on number 4 here. I can reach up and hold the bar at the same time up on the end of the crankshaft. Wow, those things are wicked tight. I'm gonna let that bar hit the frame there. Just using that to rotate, okay. Number 4, so now that bar is hitting the front of the frame. You guys can't see it. I'll go to number 5 here. So that should hold for us now. There's 5, and then 6. And 7. Jeez, those things gotta be on the verge of breaking. That's our last one, this is number 8. There we go, Dunsky, 1,000 inch-pounds. What it says. I'm just kind of a puss. That's all it comes down to. All right, so now we'll get a little bit of the good stuff on a rag here. We'll clean off our flywheel surface. Get some of the packing oils off from it. I don't want to get any brake cleaner in that pilot bearing. Keep that grease that's in there. All right. Good enough for the girls I run with. Make sure you clean off the inside surface here of your clutch cover too. You don't want to get that all crap. And pay attention to your clutch discs, because sometimes they're one way. You know, they'll tell you, this side towards flywheel or something like that. Now this one you can't really put on backwards. And you should probably never leave it hanging there like I just did, because if that hits the floor, it's garbage. You can't reuse them. Let's see, get some dowel pins here to line up. So they're all lined up. What I want to do, we've got to put a little Loctite on these, but I'm going to put just a couple in it so I can walk away and go get my Loctite I didn't bring over. But I don't want this whole mess to hit the floor. Torque spec on these little guys is 26 foot-pounds, it says. So I'm going to get these put in. Put a little bit of a medium strength Loctite on there. Don't want them flying out on you. We're just going to pull out the ones that we already put in. Right away with it, it would help. Righty tighty there, fella. Like I say, hold in on your pressure plate here, and you can see, you've got this amount of rotation here, so try to center up side to side, and then you want to get that up and down. Usually I end up just picking up on them just a little bit. Just kind of feel that center. Once you get a little pressure on it, it ain't gonna move, so. Can't move it now. alignment tool goes in and out nice and easy. There she is. So now I'll grab a torque wrench here. It's 26 foot-pounds. We should be back to where we started. Yep. Let's double check. Make sure it didn't settle down on a dowel or something. It shouldn't have. It should have been drawn up already. That's it. Pretty much back to where we started. Taking a whiteboard grubby mitts off that. Really doesn't matter much other than cosmetics. And some YouTube viewer complaining, saying I didn't torque the flex plate and or the clutch cover in a star pattern, and I left grease on it, and whatever else they whine about. There we go. Shiny. So we've got to take our slave cylinder slash throwout bearing out. We'll go way out here because we don't want to stir up all the dust. Whoa, that is the wrong way. Don't do that too many times on them bolts, they're small. So Ford's used this internal slave cylinder for a long time. What they got here, some kind of fancy connector or something. What is that? Kind of where the slave cylinder comes through here, or where the line comes through. It looks like probably got this kind of special release tool slash pick. See if you can't get that to release. It's kind of an odd thing I've never seen before. There it is. It's got that to release. And there's this little fella. So nothing wrong with it, but you know, you're doing a new clutch, you do a new throwout bearing, and you know, dang well, if you reuse this thing, it'd probably start leaking. If we can have a little looky here under the boot. If I was capable of unhooking the boot. There, little fella, gosh. Just got your big return spring under here. So that's all there is to it. If I squeeze it, brake fluid's going to squirt everywhere, so I'm not going to do that. So we're going to take and stick a rag in here. We're going to clean off this input shaft. Lots of brake clean in this video. Everybody will be happy about that. I think we've been neglecting some of the brake clean action. Kind of mop some of this up. You can take and clean out the whole bell housing if you want. Probably take you a couple cans, but it doesn't really benefit you, I guess. I mean, unless you're just like totally anal retentive and gotta do it, you know. Honestly, I'm gonna kind of hold it all in and not do it. But anyhow, you don't want any debris in here for certain, but you definitely want that input shaft clean. Remove any of the old grease or anything that's on it. This one's nice and clean. And you know, if this was all gnarred up from that bearing coming apart, you know, then we'd have to change the input shaft, which is not a huge deal. But this one looks good, and I feel comfortable reusing it. All right. So Miss Hannah just sent me a text. We might have to run over to school. She's got a friend's car over there that won't start. So I might have to take a break from this. But here's our new slave cylinder. So we're going to stick that over. It's going to go right through them clips in there. You hear it click in. And then somewhere as we put some bolts for it. There they are. We may have to go on location This kid drives an old Saab. I don't know crap about Saabs. So in effect, the engine's in backwards. I got the clutch on the front of the engine. Belts are in the back. Alright, sounds like they're here. Okay, I'm back. You guys didn't know I left. Junk Saab. It was just all flooded out. I don't know what the original problem was, but so we've got some spline lubricant that we're going to put on just the splines. We're not going to get it on the pilot bearing. So we'll put a little dab on there, then we'll brush it around. Pilot bearing's already lubed. So we should be good there. We'll take a little brush. This will help keep the clutch disc from seizing. You know, most cars that are driven all the time, that's not really too big a deal. I mean, sometimes you'll get some, some tractors or something like that sit for extended periods of time. The actual clutch disc will seize right to the input shafts here. Then it won't disengage. There we go. So that looks good. I think we're ready to put the transmission back in. I don't think we tightened the bolts though before I left. That would not be good. That's why you never leave bolts finger tight, folks. That'll burn you. It would suck. Get that whole thing together and figure that mess out. There we go, torque to spec. Alright, well, I'll try to record this the best I can. We're going to put the transmission in gear. Just kind of pick a gear, any gear. Because once we start to, get the input shaft into that clutch, we can rotate the tail of the transmission and, help line that up a little bit better. And then we can just put it back into neutral, wherever neutral is. Right there, that's neutral. Yes, sir. So we'll just pick a gear there. It'll be good. But like I say, the important thing is to not force, the input shaft into that pilot bearing. Let's see here. Get some light. We can see what the heck we're doing. Once it got up there, it got a little snug. Not too bad, I've done 100 times worse. Oops. Don't want a transmission jack taking off on us either. Okay. So we have to come forward here. Make sure everything looks good and even. Crooked. Back into the trainee's gotta go that way. Not to sit on a training jack real well here. Okay. Gotta move this training jack. So you just want to pay attention to your gap here on the transmission, on the bell housing of the transmission of the engine, and make sure it's not going in at an angle, or you want a pretty even gap. And we look like we're pretty even. I can rotate the tail shaft here and tell that we're engaged in the splines of the clutch, so that's good. We look like we got to be pretty close there. Like I say, you don't want to force it into that pilot bearing. That's a big no-no. And then look at your gap down here too to make sure you're not too tight on one side or the other. You can pull the back of the transmission around. I'm going to lightly jack it up just a little bit. Make sure our transmission's sitting on there. There we go. Went in just that little bit. We're pretty dang close right there, folks. Okay, back to the training's got to go up just a tiny bit. Oops, it slid back out on me. Oops. Oh, lady. Oh, come on, you stink pot. Bottom of this training's not flat, so it's kind of a difficult job on the training jack here. Quit rotating, you sucker. Alright, just have to look around it. The other thing, you gotta be pretty cautious of is not getting the wiring harness pinched. Oh, look at that, there we go. Alright, grab a bell housing bolt, should just slip together. Stick one of these lower bolts in it just to hold it for us. We don't want it to slip back out. And like I was saying, you gotta make darn sure you don't get any wires pinched in that bell housing. And never use the bolts to draw the bell housing in on anything, whether it's automatic or, a stick. That's a big no-no. Okay, there we go. That should stay for us. Woo! Stick another lower bolt in it here. Get our wires situated. Alright, so after you've made sure there's absolutely no wires pinched in there, I'm going to lightly tighten up these bell housing bolts. That one. Snag this one over here. Get in there. There's that one. That one. Got that one there. So now we've got to get that bracket back on top of the transmission and hold the wires there. Get that close by. Get our wires ran back up around. Everything where it needs to go. I ain't got much time left. I'm gonna have to get going. We'll have to pick back up on this tomorrow. Okay, those are on there. When I got that wiring harness loop back around, I had to put that stinking zip tie on the top. I totally forgot about that. I finished putting the bell housing bolts in by hand. So we'll take and we'll snug them up. Make sure we hit them all. Alright. Now we gotta get them harder to reach ones. Up top here. Let's see how we gotta do this. Let's kind of wedge the light up there. Stick our extension back up there how we had it. That's what we use, a classic move. Where is it? There it is. Alright. Sometimes you gotta go in just by feel, Ooh, slipped right out. Holy crap! Got that little circus taken care of. The bell housing bolts are all tight. Didn't record everything. A little bit pressed for time. We're gonna put a little never sneeze on these threads here for the O2 sensors. I just put it on the threads that way I don't have to worry about getting any on the sensor itself, or a little less likely anyhow. And like I say, we're gonna put these back to their appropriate side. Even though they're the same, shouldn't matter much, but let's see here. Grab my spanner, some folks like to call them. Take that, plug that little fella back in. I did also hook up the slave cylinder there. Put that back on. It was still dripping, so I assume there's still fluid in it. In the master anyways. Going straight, baby, there she goes. And then just put that little E-clip or whatever you want to call it back in there. That was super simple. Okay, just like that, this done before I go home. We got about 15 minutes here. So let's hustle, folks. Put that linkage back on the side of the transmission here. Oh, I'll let that back down a little. There, get my air ratchet in there. Snug that little fella up. And we'll take and, whoa, our screwdriver's still stuck there. We'll stick our shift linkage back in there. Of course, we've got to stick the bushing back in the one side. I probably should have put this in before I put that rod on, but that's okay. So we'll stick our bushing in there. Let me get a little bit of lube for these O-rings. I've got a little lube on there. Never hurts anything. Stick the rubber seal back on there in the appropriate direction. We'll get that slipped in. We'll stick the nut on it. That's that one we had to wrench the whole stinking thing off. We'll get that started a little bit. And then we got to start the other end. Of course, we got to put transmission back in neutral. There we go. We'll get this other end slipped in here. Probably gonna take that bolt back off. I am too. Big dummy. Big dummy. Sometimes I swear I don't think, especially when I get in a hurry. Okay, come on, little fella. There we go. Oh! And gotta go in even. You can't just go ram that sucker. There she goes. Alright, so I'm gonna get this bolt tightened back up here on the shift linkage. There, got that baby snugged up. We just gotta throw a starter in this thing. Engine's no good without a cranking motor. And what they call it? Some people call them cranking motors. Wow, is that on completely upside down? It is completely upside down. At least I had the blue dot to the back, you know. That's a plus. This fell on here. Find the rest of the nuts and bolts for that. That looks good. These two ought to be good. Put them back in there. Alright, let's see, that's all good, that's all in there. I'm going to take the two starter bolts. We're going to get that tossed back up in there. Quick like a little bunny. Not much to see. This is about the easiest transmission you can do. These are easy. Subarus are pretty easy also. But this here, super easy. So we'll get that starter tightened back up. We'll throw the drive shaft back in it. We got a couple more minutes. Couple more minutes. Always deadlines, man. Always deadlines. Okay. Wow. Make sure your flanges are clean. Oh, my bolts are like crap over there. We're going to put it back on in the same spot that it was as far as how the rust is on the flange. You know, you got 8 holes there to choose from. Tell me if I forgot the bolts. Where are they? There they are. I'll just bolt it back here real quick. A couple bolts. Some guys mark these where they were, which doesn't make sense to me at all, because these are not balanced as a rotating assembly. You know, the shaft is independent of the car, so it really doesn't matter where it goes on the flange. It's not like you're working on a friggin' Ferrari or something. They're probably not even done that way, I don't know. What do I know? So that'll hold that. We're going to take and throw a little bit of Loctite back on these bolts, and then get all these torqued down. I'll have to pull them ones back out. A little bit of Loctite. Keep the drive shaft from coming unglued. And then get that tightened up. I'm putting these bolts in. Every time I see a Ford drive shaft, it reminds me of another horrible story from my dad's shop. I was working with this guy there. He drove a Ford Ranger, like a 90s Ranger, and was doing a clutch or something in it. And same thing, you know, the flanges bolt together, and he's doing it, and he took all the bolts out of the back, and he took these, you know, I don't remember if it was a slip yoke or whatever it was on that, but he had his thumb up here. He's like holding this thing like this, and he's reaching back to grab the drive shaft. Well, the drive shaft come unhooked from the rear yoke and fell down completely, and he had his thumb in here and popped that sucker like a zit. That was pretty gross. So anyhow, anytime I do a Ford drive shaft, I'm always reminded of that. So don't keep your fingers there, pal. All right, folks, everything is done. We've got the drive shaft bolted back in, as you can see. Like I said, we did Loctite those, and like I said, as far as oriented on the flange, you can see, you know, we've got rust, and then, you know, just all the way around, you can't tell. But these bolts here are also threaded, so theoretically you could spin that yoke and, you know, line them up in those bolt holes. But like I said, I just line it back up on the clean spot where it was, and you know, make sure to put it in the same direction we took it out. What else here? Hose down the training with a little bit of brake clean, so you can see the remnants of that. Get our greasy digits off it. Cleaned off around that slave cylinder connection. All our clips, wires, and everything are back in. Belt housing bolts are tight. We did put the starter back in. O2 sensors, nothing's pinched in the bell housing. Shift linkage, that's up there, and that's all hooked up. It's all hooked up on the back side there. We're good to go. We need to look up the bleed procedure, and I'll still make it home on time. All right, so on this car, the reservoir for the brake master has the line coming off it that goes to the clutch master. It's inside the car, so that's actually our reservoir for the clutch. It's not independent of the brake system. So the bleeding procedure is a friggin' circus. Basically, you take the cap off, you get a rubber stopper, you pull this under a vacuum, and then release the vacuum, you know, very quickly, and you do that like 6 to 10 times, and you pump the crap out of the pedal, and you just keep repeating that procedure until you get a pedal. Chances are, if we just go in and pump the snot out of it, you know, the air will work its way back up. You know, I found on a lot of the internal slaves, even the ones that had a bleeder external, which, you know, made sense, and of course they had to make it some kind of stupid procedure, that if you push the pedal down, you know, you bleed them out. A lot of times I'd reach in the bell housing and push the throwout bearing all the way into the transmission, you know, force all the fluid out of it, close the bleeder, let it out, snap the pedal a couple times, and you're good to go. Let's just pump this one up. Yeah, you can feel the pedal starting to get stiffer now. Push it, hold it down, let some of the air work back up out of there. Oh yeah, starting to get a pedal now. We might have to put it under vacuum still, but at least we're gonna start with something anyways. Yeah, pedal's starting to get pretty stiff. This thing had a super heavy clutch in it. So a lot of times, like I said, I find that if I just let that pedal snap back up, you know, it kind of jerks the air out of the master. Yeah, it feels pretty good. That pedal feels a heck of a lot better than that old pressure. Man, that old pressure plate, that thing was super stiff. This clutch don't feel too bad. Oh yeah. All right, let's, what I want to do, all right, we got all our gears. I want to make sure that the clutch is going to engage. You don't want it right down on the floor. You know, if it's good, it's going to engage about halfway through its stroke. So we'll take it. Oh, lady! Oh, had the battery unhooked. So we're in neutral. Clutch feels good. Whoa, 4-liter thunder! Let the idle come down here. Right, so push clutch down. Alright. That goes into gear good. Yeah, you don't have to force it through the synchronizer. Yeah, you don't have to, you know, a lot of times, you know, if the clutch is still engaged or not disengaging all the way, you know, you gotta kind of shove it through to stop that input shaft. Well, that slips right in nice. Okay, so let's see where this engages. Let's go first gear. You'll hear the engine start to bog. So it's about halfway through the stroke. Clutch sounds nice and smooth. Yeah, it feels good. All right, that's it, baby. Nice. All right, folks, that's it. That is your 5-speed transmission, R&R on your 4-liter '08 Mustang, and replacing the clutch, throwout bearing, pilot bearing, flywheel, and slave cylinder with bleeding hack. No vacuuming required. Pedal is nice. Clutch engages beautifully. We'll go out and do a couple hot laps with this thing tomorrow and get this back to the girl. I told her she got it by the end of the week. And I got to get scooting. I've got about 15 minutes to get home. And shouldn't be a problem. We'll just hammer down. Google+, Facebook, check us out there. Comments, criticisms, questions in the comment box below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't. You want to see more super awesome videos like this one. And that's it. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.